Hi, my name is Tom Ollerton and this is the Shiny New Object podcast. This is a podcast about marketing technology, and every week I have the pleasure of interviewing someone from the industry who is either famous, exciting, influential, interesting, and this week I am interviewing Julie Woods-Moss, who is the ex-Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at TATA Communications. I was introduced to her by a previous guest, Craig Hepburn, who seems to get mentioned on every week on this podcast. Before we meet Julie, I need to throw in an advertisement. So, apologies for that, but I am speaking on the 7th of November in New York at the Data Driven Creative Conference. So I'll put a link to that really exciting event in the show notes, where I'll be talking about creativity, ads, and AI. And also a massive thanks to Mary Keane-Dawson, who was also a previous interviewee on this podcast, because we are recording today from her agency Truth in Oxford Circus. I didn't get the chance to record in our normal place, so we're in the boardroom. Apologies if it sounds a little bit different, but that's the way that it is. Thank you, Mary. So Julie Woods-Moss, who I found out recently was in 2017, according to Forbes, was the 17th most influential marketer. Which made me realise I should have probably done more prep for this, but you're here now. So for anyone listening to this podcast who doesn't know who you are or is unaware of your work, could you give us just a brief recap on how you ended up being here?
Cool, great to be here. Thanks so much, Tom.
Yeah, no worries.
So, love tech, started off as an encryptor, spent pretty much 20 odd years across brands like IBM, Liberty Media, BT, and most recently Tata. Had the great fortune to get to work and live all over the world. Paris, Amsterdam, New York, Vienna, Valencia, and back here in London. So it's been quite a ride, and I feel like with some of the things that are happening at the minute in tech and MarTech and brand tech and AI and AR, that it's really only just getting started. So when I left Tata, I really wanted to relearn and get deep in some of the new technologies. So I've started to work with the largest machine learning and analytics company in the world, Mu Sigma. They've just blown my mind in terms of what this technology can do to help grow businesses. And I'm working with some of the next 15 companies in their MarTech stack, Agent 3, taking my time to jump back into corporate life. It'll come, but at the moment I'm loving this period where I can sniff around, especially given everything that's happening. Excuse me for sniffing around. That's not around Tom.
Sniffing around new tech. So tell me about it. Mu Sigma is completely new to me, as is Agent 3. Can you tell me a bit more about those businesses and what they're doing?
So Mu Sigma, really look them up. Their founder 10 years ago figured out that the current business models and businesses for machine learning analytics would not scale. If you take the likes of the consultancies, fantastic white glove, but cost prohibitive. Look at the companies that have done well in IT infrastructure. Incredible scale, but they lack agility. And then you look at the product model, and the product model is fantastic for scale, but lacks flexibility. So none of those models, he didn't want to take any of those models forward. So what he's actually developed, he started off by developing a university called Mu Sigma University. Because for one thing, with all of this tech, if you do not have really good data scientists, then you're not going to be able to monetize it. So he couldn't hire enough data scientists, so he created his own university. It now trains literally thousands of people a year. He has 3,500 data scientists. But people need platforms to scale. So he then built a platform which is analytics as a service. And on top of that, he built what I call Lego blocks. So when you've worked across thousands of clients, you get to make mistakes and you get to do things well. And if you can help other brands by having Lego building blocks, so it could be something around anomaly detection, it could be something around churn management, it could be something around as simple as data extraction and exploration. Don't start from scratch. Use all the intelligence you have and add to the layer. And his platform sits on top of all the stacks, whether it's the Adobes, the Googles, the AWSs. So that is a super exciting business.
And what are you doing for those guys?
Well, helping them with predominantly helping them start conversations with new brands. They do business at the minute with 140 of the Fortune 500. They haven't spent a penny on advertising. Everything's customer referral. So like you, Tom, a lot of people don't know about them. And, because of my previous career, I'm blessed with an amazing network of smart, innovative execs. And so I'm helping them with biz dev, helping them with some of the value proposition positioning, and getting the word out.
Right, so at this point in the interview, I'm going to ask you some getting to know you questions.
Fabulous.
Super simple one, straight up. So, what is the marketing book that you recommend most often or buy for other people? What do you put in the hands of other people when it comes to a great marketing read?
Well, I tend to always recommend the last one because if I actually get to the end of it, it probably is a good sign. So what I'm recommending at the minute is a book by Scott Brinkler, and it's called Hacking Marketing. And the reason I like it is because it's a pretty fast read, so it's not like going to the theatre and you have to sit through 3 hours when you really want it to be 90 minutes. So it's sharply written, and it's, I think, addressing one of the sort of covered topics, which is how can we get experimentation? How can we get more agile working into marketing? Because if you think about what's hitting us, all the different waves, if you can't get out there fast, no matter how great it is, you're going to have missed that contextual moment. So all the marketing teams I've run, and I've managed, teams, tiny teams to literally, a few thousand, agility and speed has always been the holy grail. They've got the ideas, but why the heck does it take 10 weeks, 6 months to execute? So I like that one because it's about pace, and I like anything that gives teams pace.
So to save me having to read the book, what is his solution to that? How can you remember maybe one or two of the points of how you do bring agility and speed into a 2,000 person marketing team?
And a lot of it, the good news is a lot of it is actually already best practice in the software world. So if you think with marketing, if you get the teams to think of a minimum viable campaign, and don't worry, really, because of the way people consume media now, does it matter if everything is perfect? I mean, I know the brand police would probably say yes, but I say no. So it's bringing that Scrum mentality, trying to get, instead of, for example, classic is, who is responsible for digital in the company? And the answer is actually everybody is. So getting that type of mindset. So some of it's mindset, and other parts of it are method.
Okay. And so the next getting to know you question is, it's a tricky one, but what is the most useful thing that you've bought with your own money that is useful for work? So not like a first class ticket to New York or something.
I'll give you a bit of context here. So I went for this sort of elite fitness health program, and the gurus said, you're doing really well, blah blah blah, I won't bore you with that, but they said two things, and one of which is you need to stand up more, and they said you should be standing during your working day at least 3 hours. Now, I don't necessarily think, I'm not the sort of person who can do WebExes and stand, because I often have, a lot of screens going. So what I decided to do was start walking more. So instead of getting cabs or using the underground, I walk. I get my Google Maps, I walk. the big problem about this is it drains my battery. So the thing that I've done is
walking drains your battery.
The Google Maps drains my battery because
Right,
I would like to
phone have you got?
I like to think it's the nice new X, and
nice
anyway.
X.
I'm coming to my gadget. So what I've done is all the places I work regularly, I've bought charging tables. And I've got a little charging pad, wireless charging. So I love the thought of wireless charging, that all that electromagnetic stuff's going on and the induction, and I don't have to think about, getting my bum in the air.
Sorry to be technical, but what's a charging pad? Is this like a little iPad-sized thing?
Yeah,
I don't
and you
one.
can even get. I mean, not even. God bless IKEA. You can basically buy little coffee tables that've got charging pads on them.
Right.
So wherever you go, so the main offices I work out of, I've bought myself little charging tables. We're not talking.
How much are these things? Like
25 quid.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say a table, it's not like
It's
not
like
a whole
little
table.
no, or you can buy just the pad and it can go on any table. So instead of having to think, have I got my charger? I have these little
pads.
Nice,
brilliant.
And
That's a great idea. And that's a great Christmas present as well.
Great Christmas present, and also it means that at the end of the day you're not stranded somewhere with no directions, because it is a small message to Google to somehow find a way of location services not draining our batteries, but that's a bigger problem to solve.
Well, that's one of my big bugbears about maps in general. Maps are probably 99.9% extraneous information. Right. So we're at Oxford Circus. I want to know how to get here. I don't care where Charlotte Street or Derby Street is. All I want to know is how to get from Oxford Circus to Truth. Right. But there's so much data being yanked through, full of stuff that you're never going to use. Anyway,
the other one that we must give a shout out to is Waze. I'm blessed with a wonderful mother, but she lives a little way from me, and getting stuck in traffic is the most frustrating thing. And since I've been using Waze, I never get stuck in traffic. It's absolutely brilliant that so many people will tell me what's ahead of me, and so I can drive around it. The only problem is when Waves gets to a tipping point, it's like, when you get speedy boarding and everybody on the plane by speedy boarding, there's not another point. But at the moment, the people who have Waze seem to be benefiting from the people who don't have it.
And it drives me up the wall when you get into an Uber and he asks you which mapping system he wants you to use. He asks you where you're going, which drives me up the wall. Surely you know where we're going because the app told you. And they're like, well, do you want me to use Waze or something else? I'm like, oh my God, you're the expert. Anyway, this isn't about me and my moans. Right, this is about you. So what has been your biggest work fuck-up that set you up for success? Your biggest
Well, I'm sure
goal?
there's a long queue of people who could tell you that, but I chose one.
Unaware.
I chose one because it happened years ago, and I still think of it. It was when I was fired by my agency.
What, as an employee or your brand was fired?
I had an agency, and I'll tell you who they are.
Okay.
And their CEO got me on the phone.
And who did you work for?
This was actually early days at TATA.
Oh, right.
Which is not necessarily, it could be anywhere, but it was early days at TATA. And I'll tell you who the brand is. They're called Velocity Partners.
That's the agency.
They're the agency.
Yeah, right.
And Doug Kessler and Stan Wood. And I had known them from my first career break in IBM. They were my PR company. And they were one of these cool, very smart guys who realized the adjacency of PR to social. They sold a PR company and then started this incredible B2B company called Velocity. And I had the best run with them. We'd created amazing work. So I thought, right, let's get them into TATA. And they were absolutely thrilled. The problem, they said, was the team weren't ready for them. And so the minute I left the room, they were just burning cycles. And of course they could bill us the hours, but they wanted to produce quality work. And they actually said, we're really sorry, but you and your team are not ready for it. You've not got the time to be in every meeting. And we don't have the time to sort of develop your team to where we need them to be. So we're firing you. And
They use those words.
Yeah.
And these are your mates. Oh,
And
how did that feel?
I will tell you, I actually, I was really shocked. It was like, guys, we can find a way around this. They said, no, we can't. Look, we're a young agency. We need to work with productive clients. And I thought, you know what? That is such an important lesson. And if you are not a productive client, you will not get the best work out of an agency. And, you know, I have to give them credit that they were right. We weren't ready for them. And in fact, if we'd spent more time on what do you recommend, their B2B blog, Doug does a blog, and I think your readers would love it because it talks about crap a lot. You know, it's not like overly intellectualized. It is a fantastic blog, and I actually recommend that to all B2B marketeers. I say, if you're going to read one thing...
What's the blog called?
It's just the Velocity Partners blog.
Okay.
But Doug came from Ogilvy and Mather copyright sort of school, and his spin on content is exceptional.
Brilliant.
So,
right. Well, you've given them enough of the plug.
Anyway, but they did fire me. I'm not. I don't do any business with them, by the way.
No.
I probably should go back to them, but I just thought, no, lesson learned.
I don't think they're going to speak to you. Right. Okay. So that is brilliant. I've never met anyone who's been fired by an agency. That's fantastic. So, in terms of your career, what has been the best investment of your time, your energy, or your money?
Okay. Well, back in the BT days, I was...
What was your role at BT?
I was president of International, covering strategy, marketing, product propositions. It was a big job. Anyway, I found myself doing this big gig at one of the Fortune conferences. And I met a guy called Keith Ferrazzi. And he knows this. I'll tell you up front, I did not like him immediately. And he'd written this book called Never Eat Alone.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, you know this book? And I found it just shameless. It was like, you know, don't make me feel guilty about having some me time. And
it's a book about...
This is a book about networking.
Right, yeah,
right?
Of course.
And he said, look, I can help you, I can help your team. And I said, not sure this is for me. But then he wrote a second book, which was called Who's Got Your Back? And it was all about generosity and about, if you think of networking as a way of being in service of your network and of others by helping them, then networking becomes joyful. And we all know that in business, you do need to know people. You know, if you can't pick up the phone and talk to people or message them, networking is important, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable with it. And I read this book. This was a year after I met him in person, called him and I said, I want to work with you. And I was fortunate because I was still relatively young. And I would say, I credit him, if I've got a lovely network today, which I think I have, I credit him because he helped me find a way to do it that felt joyful.
And what I'm interested again about the detail of the book. What were those tips that he gave that, well, give me one that you remember that has really worked? Well,
one thing is, it's not going to happen by chance, which sounds flipping obvious, but it is. Networking, yeah.
Okay.
And so I'll give an example. So a lot of, people who work for me in the past, they'll say, how is it when you go to a conference, you always meet amazing people? And it's because you put in the hard miles before you get to the conference. So you will say, okay, there's 50 speakers. Who are the 5 I'd really like to meet? And you make a big effort. You make sure you know what they look like, stupid things. So if you see them and they're on their own, you can say, I read that book about you. I'm looking forward to your speech tomorrow. Who doesn't respond to that? So part of it is actually being structured as you would with developing a product. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and it again sounds obvious, it's when you meet somebody, never ask anything of them. Always think, what can I do for you? And generously do it. And a lot of people also think that networks are, proprietary. I mean, I'm not talking about the old days of IT. But actually, the more generous you are with your network, the more it grows. So instead of thinking, oh, I know this really important person and I'm not going to introduce anybody to them because they're mine, absolutely the opposite. But and these are things, these are unsaid things. This is the human psyche. So that having that just generosity.
See, that really resonates with me, and I've never thought of putting in hard miles before a conference. I'm really guilty of, right, my talk's at 1:45. I'll get there at 12:30. I'll do it, and then I'll ignore everyone typing away, and then I'll nick off because I'm told myself I'm so busy. But the idea that your network won't happen by chance, that is a brilliant bit of advice, and I've been quote unquote networking for the best part of 10 years, really. So that's really interesting, and I think it's such an obvious thing. There you go. I don't need to read the book now. Brilliant. Thank you for that. But I may well. I'm not a very good book reader. I'm more of a listener.
Blogger. You're a blogger.
Well, no, I can
You're oral.
Audible and stuff. It's brilliant. Right. Okay. So, given that you just dropped off your eldest at university yesterday, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now,
congratulations to him.
And now imagine that he is leaving university and assuming he's going to be smart and driven and he's trying to get into our industry. Mm-hmm. If he didn't know you, what would you suggest that he did to get into the marketing and advertising game?
I would say do anything just to get your foot in the door. But when you get your foot in the door, do not waste the opportunity. So I'll give a quick example. I won't say who the kid is, but a kid I helped, really bright kid, mum and dad have no connections. And I did help him a little bit get an internship. But before, a short internship at one of the top legal firms. So that was the generosity of me. But when he got there, I said to him, look, everybody else in this internship will be there because their mum and dad work at the partnership. They'll be thinking, oh, when can I get to the beach? You're there and you don't have any right to be there. You're there because you got lucky and I happened to get you in. So when you are there, you work your ass off. And so if they say, if you're on an internship and they give you the most mundane job, do it brilliantly, do it fast. So as an example, he was given, he was given like stacks and stacks of files to read on a very, very high profile case. And not for 1 minute did those partners think he would go through it. He did, and he found about 10 inconsistencies. The partners actually couldn't believe it. So fast forward, he was the one they asked back. He was the one they said, look, we'll pay you 300 quid a week. And so he started. And it's absolutely not easy, but one of the things I'll say to young people, practice having conversations with people. If you just live your life through your device, unfortunately, devices are not going to give you a job. You might get lucky and get a hit on LinkedIn, but you're more likely to get it if you actually find out who your parents' friends are. Go on LinkedIn and try and start a conversation. You've just got to be proactive. I think it's really, really tough at the moment to get a foot on the ladder.
So, thinking about advice that you get and advice you hear other people be giving in the industry, what are the bad recommendations that you hear in your profession? What makes your toes curl when you hear these things being said?
Yeah, I've been predominant in B2B, and the thing that drives me nuts is vanity marketing. And so, say it may be really cool to be doing something on Snap or, when Instagram was first out, but if it's not right for your brand, there's no amount of being cool will get you clients. And I think that is something that marketeers are really, marketeers, creative people, they love new things, they love shiny things, as you're your podcast has proven out. But you really have to just stay true to who your brand is, who your clients are. And if the new sexy stuff isn't for them, it's not for you either. So I think that would be one of the big things that drive me mad, because I see it so often. Or people feeling inadequate because they're not doing certain things. So, be proud of what you do and explain why you do it. And
so in your previous role, it's an interesting job title, Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer. The fact that either the business or yourself called innovation out. Can you tell us about your approach to marketing innovation in such a big job at such a global level? Because it's great to hear, don't get sucked in by vanity, don't get sucked in by novelty, stay true to the brand. I don't think there's a marketer out there that would argue with you. But how did you do that? What was your approach to making innovation work?
I mean, a good example was the partnership we had with Formula One. So a lot of my colleagues, my peers in B2B, chose to put their logo on a car. And it cost them a significant amount of money, and they had all the viewer numbers, but did it actually drive business? So when I saw the platform as a global platform to showcase the technology that the company has, so that the company would become de-risked for global Fortune 500s. And what better way to do that than to show operationally that you could deliver for a brand like Formula One week in, week out across all the continents in an industry that really demands the services we had. So rather than putting the logo on a car, I did a rights deal with Formula One. And the rights deal allowed me to say that Formula One used my technology, and for that I got some branding, but predominantly it was to set up an experience center. So in that experience center, we showcased everything from, how augmented reality would work in the sport, IoT, new media services, at a fraction of what I would have paid to have been, on the front of a car.
So tell me a bit more about that. So that was an experience centre that went round globally, so they would build it every time people went to a new track?
Yeah, okay. So basically Formula One, when they arrive at a race, they have to set up their operations centre. So it's a command centre. It's like the technology that a medium-sized company would have. They have to set it up in 3 days and decommission it in a day and a half. TATA basically negotiated the rights to co-locate in that centre and have our own technology exhibit. So we were providing a lot of services to Formula One. So if you were one of our VIP guests, you could get this money you can't buy experience to go into Command Central Formula One, see everything, see how the engineers manage it, everything they have to do to make that media experience flawless. And I then had, instead of having a fancy showcase in some tower building, that cost me millions, I had a living, breathing showcase that was one day in Abu Dhabi, another day in, Milan, another day in, Valencia, and my clients could see the technology, in the field, so to speak.
Which is a brilliant, innovative idea in itself.
So that's an example of compared to some of the staggering numbers you hear of rights spends, and we've all seen them in live events command massive premiums. We had to be very savvy because our demographic isn't 500 million Formula One fans. It's a subset of those, and we needed to be smart about it.
So that's a brilliant story. So, in many years from now, when you retire from this game, how do you want people to remember your career?
Oh, I mean, that is a get-to-know-you question that's really hard. Because do
you want to pause it for later?
Well, let's. I mean,
I'll ask you again at the end.
I will say, one of the characteristics I love in others is curiosity. And I think I have that in abundance. And I would like to be remembered for my curiosity, my energy, and hopefully my kindness. I think kindness as a trait in business is under-recognised.
Right, well, I'll give you feedback at the end of this podcast on how curious, energetic and kind you've been. But so far, you're doing very well. And what's the new GCSE marks? Are they out of 9 now?
9, yeah.
Right,
but that apparently only 740 kids in. Well done, all the kids who got all the 9s. And I said this with my son, my older son. I decided to give him the financial recognition for the how he worked, not what he achieved. So he got his recognition before he got his grades. Because I said it's not about the grade, it's about what you've learned about yourself, what new skills you've gained. So if you found a new way of learning, if you found a way of structuring yourself, if you found a new passion, those are life skills that go beyond the 9s and the 8s and the A stars, and that's what will take you forward in life. Because frankly, as horrific as it may seem to all those young students and undergrads, that once you've got your first job, nobody asks you about your A-levels and your GCSEs, and once you've got your second job, nobody asks you about your degree.
Yeah, very, very true. I actually read your article you did on LinkedIn about that, and I'll try to remember to put this in the show notes, but I thought it was very humble the way that you try to put those values into your son, but at the same time he taught you a lot about learning. So yes, you've got a 9 out of 9 for curiosity so far, but we're halfway through the show and we're going to get onto your shiny new object, and I have to confess I've never heard of this. So yeah, says the innovation person. So your shiny new object is the Stackies.
Yes, the Stackies.
What are you on about?
So I first got into Martech in the mid-2000s, so around 2007-8, made a couple of investments while I was BT and got my fingers a little bit in that pie. And at the time, there was about 300 companies across the stack. Fast forward to now, there's 6,000. And you can literally have tool du jour. And what the Stackies have done, and it's the blog, the website, chiefmartech.org. What they've done is they've tried to help people navigate that. So my favourite one, which was one of the Stackie winners of this year.
So it's an award ceremony. That's what the Stackies is.
The Stackies is an award, and it recognises how people have built the Martech stack. But not just how they've built it, then how they articulate that. Because, frankly, you can get so in the minutiae. So to give an example, BlackRod, one of the big investment houses, they've obviously invested across this, and they've developed like what I would call the Sim City of Stackies. So they have Discoverville, Planville, Createville, and each of these zones in the metropolis, the Martech metropolis, has a thing that you're supposed to do and then some technology that you can do it with. So if you're coming into my world, my Martech world, I can just say to you, here's a visualization of how you navigate this world. Because otherwise, who knows what Cvent does? Who knows what, Permission Fox does? It's just mind-blowing. And so because I really love storytelling, I think my shiny new thing is the Stackie, because it overlays a story on a really complex space and allows people to navigate it, and by navigating it quickly will allow them to monetize it. And yes, within the Stackie, there's all sorts of cool stuff. So I know it's not one particular piece of tech, but it's actually, in some respect, I could argue more powerful.
I'm still, to be honest with you, a little bit lost. Right, we're going to work this out. So I am every week I always say this brand for no reason other than I'm the marketing manager of Bovril, right? Mm. And if you are the marketing manager of Bovril, I'd love to get you on this show because I've talked about you so much. Mm-hmm. But how would that person use the Stackies?
Okay, so say Bovril they could be in a blessed position. They've got a fully formed stack, right? So they could have...
And by a stack,
by the Martech stack. So everything, all the way across the funnel, fully integrated with all their channels, blah, blah, blah. But they still have the CIO to deal with. They still have the CEO to deal with. They still have their external stakeholders, the analysts, who are saying, how fit are you for purpose? So if the head of marketing brand for Bovril wanted to overlay what he or she's doing on one of these Stackies, so they could say, okay, what do I have? Right, I've got a metropolis, Martech metropolis. I've got one city-state, which is Discoverville. What do I have in my stack that does discovery? What are the technologies and tools, and what do they actually do?
And when you say discovery, I'm asking you these very simple questions because there are some people who don't have your level of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say discovery, what do you mean?
Defining the opportunity, defining what your value is. So that could be all in Discoverville. Then you go into Conceptville. Conceptville is, what is your idea? How is it differentiated? How does it differ from the competition? What tools and technology do you have to test that, to deliver it, to define it? Then you go into Planville. What resources do you have? What technologies, tools do you have to run that idea through a campaign, et cetera, et cetera. So it just gives you that big picture to take all the weeds up and give them growth and flower heads.
So
Have a look. Google.
No, I can't not having a look. We've got to get this over on this podcast, right? So to me, that sounds like a list of different technologies under different headlines, right? So I'm Bovril, and I need to. We've got a new flavour, which is a vegan Bovril, for argument's sake, and we're going to use 3-4 technologies to do, I don't know, bid optimization and whatever. So what is the difference between a metropolis and a Stackie and someone just having a slide with just a list of some technologies on it?
Well, I think if you're sitting the other side of the table and say first off, I think most people would find that the technology they have underservices the whole funnel. So first off, it allows you to do that white space mapping. Secondly, I would say, and I've worked in many big companies, 95% of marketeers are a little scared of the tech and they don't use it to its full ability. So if you can humanize it and say, right, this is how it all fits together, this is how you would walk through this space, that's another big learning. Thirdly, the black box approach to MarTech, I don't believe is a very sustainable one. A lot of marketeers, the black box is on the agency side, and that is really scary to me. So
tell me more about that.
So if you don't know half the tech your agencies are using, you either say, right, well, over to you. So you can actually bring your agency stack into the Stackie. So where you've got the critical dependencies, the pinch points. And it can also make you question, should the agency be doing that? Or actually, should I have it in-house? So, I don't want to sort of bang on about this, but these are all benefits of taking this Stackie approach. And we all know that the businesses that take a platform approach tend to be the ones prospering. And so this is a way for me of taking MarTech and making it a little bit more democratic. So rather than it be, the 2 or 3 really smart techies in marketing, it democratizes it. And
so just to go back one step there, just you say businesses that take the platform approach are the ones that tend to succeed. Can you tell me a couple of those stories, just for someone who might not know that?
Well, I mean, the whether you take, Facebook, whatever you think at the moment, but Facebook have got a set of tools. They've not said we offer a specific product. They offer a platform for other people's products. So if you think of your company as a platform, that you have some product, there may be other companies who have product for your customers. It tends to be a more sustainable business model than just thinking of yourself as, a provider of a service. Spin it round and think of yourself as a platform or an ecosystem.
And so how would our marketing manager at Bovril take a platform approach?
Okay, well, a platform approach for Bovril, start with the customer and think, right, what are the obvious adjacencies Bovril has for, it could be, what is Bovril made? So Bovril and bread. What are the unexpected adjacencies you could have? Can I actually, if I've got all these crazy loyal Bovril, lovely customers, can I be a channel to somebody else? If somebody's got artisan bread, if there's a trend that people are talking about farm to table, but none of the farm to table brands are well known, could Bovril do an association with all the wonderful farm to tables? What are the most crazy, creative ways you can add Bovril to your table, and then bring all the other brands with you, because they're the ones with the lead brand, they're the one with the client loyalty.
Right, so you're creating a platform, or you're giving a platform to complementary brands that support what your brand stands for.
Yeah.
That's probably the best Bovril marketing idea they've had in a while. So.
Oh well, don't underestimate.
I am not.
You mention them all the time.
I do mention them all the time. I'm just intrigued. Okay, so let's say that you take on your next job, whoever that's for, TBC. But as you promised earlier in the episode, that you will be going back in the corporate life. So you can share your contact details at the end. So what does your first 90 days look like as an arriving CMO or COO or CTO or however all those things squished together, or head of innovation or CIO? What does your first 90 days look like, and how does the Stackies approach work with that?
Well, I think
that's an interview question.
We should park the Stacky for the moment, because that's only one little bit of it. In fact, a friend of mine at Google who joined at a really senior level, she was telling me that Google encourages people to be generous. So a lot of it is about what can you give back to your colleagues. And it's unusual for very senior people to join Google. And another very senior woman who joined Google wrote a book, or a little booklet to help others. And I thought...
What was that book?
And it's a little booklet. It's only available to Google newbies. And it's how to thrive in your first 90 days at Google. And so some of the things I would have never done, and I think I would do in my next job. And one of the first ones was never ask a question that starts with why. Always ask a question that starts with how. Because if you ask questions, say you're the new person and you come in and you've genuinely got great ideas and you think you can help them and you've got great things that you want to do. But the team also have some greatness in them. And if you ask why questions, why did you do this? It implies criticism. Instead of asking, so how did you do that? How did you go about it? So that's just one thing from day one. I would ask more how questions than why questions. Because if you're curious, you tend to ask why questions. So how questions. Second thing is, try not to make any material decisions for the first couple of months, even if you're sort of pressed to do it. And then the third one would...
So explain that. Make less material decisions.
Well,
Well, hey, his own podcast on his phone, man. Oops.
So, Poddy Pod, everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody, there's excitement. The new person's joined. They're going to do really great things. And pace yourself. Spend more time in the first couple of months listening. So I had an interesting meeting a few months ago with the former CEO of Chanel. She had, when she joined, 18 months where the board of Chanel said, we do not want you to do anything except learn and listen. You are here for the long haul. You will be CEO.
CEO or CMO?
CEO. And obviously most brands wouldn't give you 18 months, but give yourself 2 months. Listen, speak less, listen more. Don't make any big decisions. That would be the second thing. And the third thing is, though, look for a few quick wins, even if it's helping people in the most unlikely ways, so that your team think, actually, this is a person who can get stuff done. And so I thought those were all ideas that I haven't ever tried in a first 90 days, and I think they're all really great ideas.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Right, so what do you normally do? Come in wielding your lightsaber around severing heads?
Yeah, I think if people ask for your opinions, it's nice to give them. So I'm probably too opinionated when I first arrive. So I think that's one thing I can leave, on the pavement outside.
So what are you gagging to try that you, outside of these kind of more strategic or mindset things, in terms of technology, where is your curiosity? What are the technologies that you've never done, that you've seen whilst you've been away from corporate life, that you think, if it's right, if it is the right thing for the brand to do, I would love to investigate that more?
Yeah, I think it's the trade-off between sort of the technologies that are here and now that most brands are not, are not fully leveraging. So again, I'll come back to my B2B sort of space. The fantastic results you can get through social selling, and very few B2B go-to-markets have fully integrated. Most B2B go-to-markets have not been digitized, and it's that sort of melting pot of digital marketing and sales, and in most places they're still pretty much divided by a big chasm. So that whole area, I think, a lot of the CMOs I know, they have been one of the early adopters of technology, and I think that that space is well understood. But I think how you embrace the whole go-to-market, so that whole area, because I think there's a lot of shareholder value creation there.
And just to go a bit deeper into social selling, what do you mean by that exactly? Because we all call that a different thing. So I'm just curious as to what you see social selling as.
One of the big social selling platforms is LinkedIn, and we've all experienced that at its worst, but also at its best. How do you get, say, if you're a brand and you have like a few thousand B2B salespeople, how do you at scale get them all microblogging, get them being advocates of the company without being echo chambers? And there's good technology you can use. There's now agency networks developing. So that whole space.
It's interesting. What technology in that space? Who can you point to specifically? There's companies, say for example one that I've used in the past called Social Quant. So, most people when they get into Twitter or any of these social platforms say, look, I can't just commit to doing this every day. I forget, I do this. So if you've got a platform that you say, okay, I'm interested in these topics, and it can't all be business. If you're a Man United fan, put that in there. If you're passionate about charities for the homeless, put that in there. And then, of course, if you're interested in cloud or, fintech or whatever it is. And then the AI that sits underneath, not just this platform, but many others, you can say, and I like following these types of people. So the platform then, you pay them a small subscription and they will follow people like that. You can then map that with some technology that will sort of sync in when you do your micro-blogging. So you can give, say, a salesperson 100 little pieces of content vignette, and that salesperson can tick 20 of them that they feel comfortable with, that he or she. And then the AI will think, okay, well, that person likes that stuff, so I'm going to send that content. So there's like a little bedrock of activity that doesn't require you showing up and doing it. And so it's like curated.
It's like programmatic
B2B content that you're like. So I'm a busy salesperson, and I've got 15 minutes in between meetings, and I want to send something to Jane, and she's into whatever cloud, and here's a bit from from us on that subject. Right,
Yeah.
okay, that's brilliant. So, social
and
quant.
it works, there's other platforms that do the CMS, so the types of CMS systems that we're familiar with, there are CMSs now to do microblogging, and there is an investment of time. You have to invest to sort of plan it, but then there's a certain amount of automation.
So I stopped you halfway through, but you were talking about the things that you have an appetite for.
Yeah. So, and most of it, I will say, is around the MarTech and the AI and how those, the machine learning. That is something I really think is going to be much more disruptive than e-commerce ever was, and brands are, the clever brands and companies are leveraging it now, but they're really mostly only on the start of the journey. So that whole space, I think, is fantastic, and that's exciting to get involved in. But then the other piece, which has a little calling for me, is imagine, like you said, what would you like to be remembered for? Well, there are people literally, breathing the same air as we breathe, who are inventing general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and the impact that will have on every aspect of humanity, and it would be something of a privilege and super scary to be anywhere around artificial general intelligence.
Because my theory here, and you're going to laugh at this, but I don't think that we can have an artificial general intelligence without some form of artificial general creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And creativity is a very difficult thing to code, as everyone is finding, because we don't really understand it ourselves. But in order for there to be a general intelligence, we need some form of creativity. And what I don't mean is like this machine must be able to think of ad campaigns or draw paintings, but all problem solving is fundamentally creativity. I want to get this end, and I am currently here. Then you need to find a solution, and that solution tends to come from somewhere that is actually creativity. So I'm going somewhere with this. That I think that the people who are most likely to invent that creativity is probably ad land or associated ad tech, because that's where the money is for people to actually be able to use that technology. So if you're an IBM or a Google and you can invent a general creativity that you can apply at scale to all brands, then you will have all business, because it will be the cost of operating it will be niche, because it's just all in the cloud. So really, I think in some ways that our industry might be the first people to actually break through and create a general creativity which then can be applied as a general intelligence.
I think there's a huge logic there. The other flip side of that is, though, the numbers of people who have got the talent to really develop this artificial intelligence that's general intelligence. You're talking about hundreds of people, not thousands of people, and my understanding of having conversations with them is they are motivated to solve the biggest problems facing humanity, and so I expect more progress to be made in places like health than Adland. So if you've read Life 3.0, which is an absolutely brilliant book covering this whole space, and say if you've got 100 data scientists and you're working on a general, that actually can work on developing, artificial intelligence. What would you rather have them do? Say, okay, let's sell more sweets to children, or actually let's cure dementia. I mean, it's not, they are more likely. And I'm not talking about data scientists. That's different. But I'm talking about this adjacent group who have the wherewithal to look at general intelligence. I think they're going to stampede into the room to help solve dementia.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Maybe they could also help kids eat less sweets. Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that advertising just becomes totally redundant if you have a general intelligence and a general creativity, then there would be literally no reason for an advertising agency if it could genuinely do that.
Well, the good news for advertising agencies is this Life 3.0, which is very well researched and beautifully written. One of the visuals in there is like a waterfall, waterline model, and it basically has mountains and a waterline that rises, and it says where is the waterline likely to rise in terms of what jobs are likely to be replaced first by artificial intelligence and then general intelligence. And really, really positively, marketing is like on the peak of one of the summits, because marketing being the broad category for, advertising, brand, digital, because it's this strange mix of data and creativity, which you rightly say AI finds more troublesome. So as an example, your general practitioner, your sort of entry point medical, they are well below the waterline. If it wasn't for the empathy required in dealing with humans, actually in most cases machines would be more effective in diagnosing common ailments and flagging anomalies than human. But there's a big part of dealing with illness is the empathy and the emotional intelligence, which clearly isn't there yet.
So we are coming very close to the end of this podcast, and so I always do this, it's habit now. I always write down everything that's interesting that you say and try to recap at the end, and I've written far too much, which says a lot. So you started off as an encryptor, you've worked at BT, IBM and recently TATA. You're working with some exciting businesses and advisory capacity, Mu Sigma and Agent 3, who are completely new to me, so I'll be looking at those guys. And then we talked about the fact that the biggest problem that brands and their internal teams have is agility and speed, which is you see as being the kind of holy grail of marketing. And I love this idea, and I wish we'd talk more about it, is the idea of getting to a marketing team to think of the minimal viable campaign. It doesn't have to be perfect. You say no, but the brand police would say yes. I think there's an incredible tension there that we should talk about another time. And some personal stuff that you've been encouraged to stand up for 3 hours and tell me about your charging table. I need to get into that. And then we talked about networking, and a huge lesson for me is networking you don't grow your network by chance. Prime the pump, put the hard miles in before you arrive somewhere. And advice for young people: get your foot in the door, do mundane tasks brilliantly and do it fast. I definitely back that up. And when we talk about new technology, you say vanity technology drives you nuts. You've got to ask yourself as a brand if this technology is right for who this brand is. And then you went into detail about the way that you worked with Formula One, building the experience, and what a brilliant, creative and innovative idea that was. And then we started talking about the Stackies, which is completely new for me, which I'm not sure 100% understand, but I think with a short Google search I'll be learning a lot. But I love this idea of bringing storytelling to the tech stack. I just literally never thought about that at all. And I think there's some lovely provocative thoughts around how taking a black box approach to technology isn't sustainable, especially on the agency side. And we had an interesting chat about how Bovril could create a platform, which is a brilliant free idea for those guys. And then we looked at behind the scenes at Google a little bit, and then you were talking about how you'd approach your kind of first 90 days in a job, and how you think that we should listen more than we talk, and the opportunities in social selling. And you also share my view that AI and machine learning will be much more disruptive than ecom or many other technologies were. And we also chatted at the start, almost halfway through, about how you'd like to be remembered. And you said you'd like to be remembered for your curiosity, your energy, and your kindness. And 9 out of 9 across all of your GCSEs for that today. Thank you. Genuinely, thank you so much. That was so broad and so interesting. But I'm sure there's going to be people who want to get in touch with you, either to offer you that next job or get them to speak at your conference or advise their business. if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would you suggest that they do that?
Well, just email me.
Do you want to share your email
Yeah,
address?
Julie@woodsmoss.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and look forward to hearing any questions or ideas. I'd be happy to listen and learn from you all.
Oh, fantastic. You're the first person to share their email address, I think. That will bring good things, no doubt. Thanks again to Mary for lending us the space. Julie, thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Thank you, Tom. Really enjoyed the conversation.